Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
I would beat him in a fight, and you know that.
And if that fight presented itself, it'll be no question. You'll say yes.
Yeah.
10-ounce gloves, no headgear.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a big guy.
I'm a big woman. The biggest and strongest man don't want all the fight.
I mean, I hear you. They don't win all the fights.
So what's the difference here? I've been boxing for 18 years.
The difference
18.
is, Clarissa, you are a woman. He's a man.
I got you. He got a. I get it. But what about the skills that I have? That doesn't matter because I'm
No, that plays a part. Of course it does. I'm not saying that he's beating you, you beating him. I'm just speaking of the matchup. At some point in that fight, that size is gonna play a part. You don't think?
He gotta break me down. He gotta be able to hit me. I gotta be able to break him down. I gotta be able to hit him. It's certain things that I can do that he don't even know yet.
I've often wondered in all the years that Clarissa has spent calling out Jake Paul and other men for a fight, what's the end game?
What's the point? What is she trying to prove?
I remember as far back as 2020 when Clarissa Shields was calling out Jake Paul for a fight, and in the subsequent years that have followed, has she not yet realized the error of her ways and seeing all the success and all the doors that have opened for Amanda Serrano and the money that she's making?
The money Clarissa is not.
That you draw more flies with honey. You would do a lot better to have Jake Paul as an ally than an enemy. Jake himself has never fed into Clarissa's constant call-outs or insults because he's too busy making money. He's too busy succeeding in his ventures while she's more or less now where she was before.
Fighting for relevance.
I view it as a form of bullying because it's a humiliation tactic. Underneath it all, she knows that Jake Paul in the Western world is not at liberty to have a full-on fight or a full-on boxing match with a woman.
It's frowned upon.
So when she brought up a Gennady Golovkin or a Keith Thurman, in this instance a Jake Paul, what she's really trying to do is paint him into a corner. And it's smart of him, it was smart of them, to not even entertain her.
Would she win?
The argument she's making that size by itself doesn't win boxing matches, which is true. I mean, Usyk just beat Tyson Fury, who's a lot bigger than him.
Right?
But that's one man versus another. You're a woman. Jake is a man.
Not the same thing.
Not the same situation, and this is the same Clarissa Shields that was sat on her ass by a much smaller man than Jake Paul in Artur Amatov.
He's a much smaller man than she is.
Huh?
Artur Amatov's, when he was a professional boxer, when he was fighting, campaigned anywhere in between 135 and 140 pounds, whereas Clarissa debuted at 168. She's bigger than he is.
He was.
So if we're gonna talk about size, a guy who's not the size of a Jake Paul, he's not a cruiser, he's not a heavy, the guy that knocked you on your ass, he's basically a lightweight. That's what a lightweight did to you.
So what do you think happens if Jake Paul connects with a punch the same way that Artur Amatov did? What do you think happens? I'm sure that there are many out there that would love to see Clarissa get what she wants and get her comeuppance immediately after, but it's still frowned upon enough in the Western world that Jake Paul is not at liberty to give her what she wants, nor should he. Somebody's got to be the adult. Somebody's got to be mature here. And you would think that it's the pugilist, the actual boxer.
The Olympic gold medalist?
But she is the antagonizer, the antagonist, the misandrist.
What the hell's a misandrist?
Somebody who hates men. In this postmodern day and age, what you often hear about is misogyny in the online community. The opposite of misogyny, the hate of women, is the hate of men. Misandry.
Clarissa is a misandrist. You can't tell? She hates men. All those failed relationships.
How many she's challenged to a fight, whether it's Gennady Golovkin or Keith Thurman, in this instance Jake Paul, to belittle them and humiliate them, emasculate them.
But she's not stupid.
She's very careful to pick these fights with fighters that won't entertain her, because there are some that are. The Charlo brothers, they don't got no reservations about slapping up a broad.
Those two guys slap up their own girlfriends. They ain't gonna have no problem slapping you up.
You notice she doesn't mention them. You notice that she doesn't call out either of the Charlo brothers, who just so happen to campaign at the same weights as her. Middle?
Jamal is at super middle.
You want to test your mettle so bad against a grown man, why don't you test your mettle against them? Because she knows what she's doing, and it's a form of bullying.
She ain't stupid.
You're only calling out people that you know won't respond, you know won't bother you, so that you can try to humiliate them in front of the public eye.
Emasculating them.
Though for what? Neither Gennady Golovkin, a Keith Thurman, a Jake Paul ever said a foul word to Clarissa Shields for her to go after them, go after him so vehemently. What did he do?
What's it all about?
She's a bully. That's all she is. It's just like Savannah Marshall said in the build-up of their fight. And women's boxing would have been a lot better off if Savannah would have won that fight.
Knocked out Clarissa.
She's not a role model. She's not a good role model. She's not a good ambassador for anything aside from her own ego. Getting into arguments with everybody from Remy Martin to Cameron Giles. Her contemporaries, she gets into arguments with them all the time. No, boxing, women's boxing, would have been better off if Savannah would have stopped her. It's unfortunate that she didn't. Throughout all of this, you don't see any of the other prominent women fighters doing what Clarissa's doing. You don't see Katie or Amanda doing it. You didn't see Sinicia doing it, or Yokastia,
Sky, Alicia,
Dina or Shanika. I mean, you name them. In this category, Clarissa really does stand alone.
not in a good way.
4 or 5 years of calling out Jake Paul for a fight, and what's it gotten her? A lot of negative press and not much else. Just imagine that there are still those out there that would defend this kind of behavior,
Few.
seemingly more and more, an exercise in futility. Because what's to defend? Her right to be a jackass? Men's super middle, light heavyweight news, David Benavidez has a theory on why Canelo Alvarez turned down insane offer to face him.
Which is funny because Eddie Reynoso, Canelo's longtime trainer and manager, some months ago said they were never offered anything to face David Benavidez.
And what is this bona fide case of he said, she said? David Benavidez still finds it difficult to understand why Canelo avoided a fight with him despite a quote-unquote insane offer being made to the Mexican. Alvarez has dominated the super middleweight division in the last 6 years, once claiming all 4 belts in the process of having beaten the likes of Gennady Golovkin, Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, and Callum Smith. Benavidez's name is missing from the list, however. The Arizona native called out Alvarez for years, but to no avail. To be honest with you, I really don't know, Benavidez told Boxing Scene when asked why he thinks Canelo has yet to fight him. I'm thinking, why wouldn't he take this fight? Why would this fight not happen? But every time I come back to this point, I feel like he won't fight me because he knows he can't beat me. I honestly feel like he knows he can't beat me. Obviously, I'm in there. I'm always going to be 100% confident in whatever I do, but the money that they've been offering him to make this fight happen is just an insane amount for him not to take it. It's because he knows he's not confident in himself, so I'm doing everything in my job to keep going and keep winning.
All of that sounds good. But when the other side is saying the exact opposite of what you're saying, who are we supposed to believe?
It's dramatically different. Where this guy says they're offering Canelo crazy money, Canelo's manager says they were never offered anything. This is where a fighter's character and track record so far comes into it, because we've often seen a lot of instability on the David Benavidez side of things. Stories that don't quite line up, like when his promoter said that they signed a contract to fight David Morrell for David himself to come out and say he never signed anything.
Instability.
It's not so much because David's saying it, but because of who Canelo is, that Canelo's the guy who, whatever fight he wants to have, he can have. So if this one hasn't happened,
Must not want it to.
with Alvarez showing no sign of facing Benavidez, the latter moved to campaign at light heavyweight out of frustration, decisioning Oleksandr Vajdik over 12 rounds in June, winning the WBC interim light heavyweight title on February 1st. Benavidez is scheduled to slug it out with David Morrell in a make-or-break fight at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. I did everything to prove that I'm willing to fight this fighter. But I mean, if it doesn't happen, it's because of him. Maybe he needs 200 million to face me. I don't know. But other than that, I don't think that's his only point. That's the only thing he'll be willing to fight me for.
200 million?
There are a lot of different ways you can look at this, though some only choose to look at it from one side. If you're Canelo, you're not strapped for cash. You're not desperate, how David Benavidez is desperate. You're not stuck between a rock and a hard place. Canelo Alvarez can get out there and make 35, 40 million with a ham sandwich.
And that's just his fight purse. That's not counting endorsements, sponsorships, outside business endeavors outside the world of boxing. That if you're Canelo Alvarez, you're not pressed to do anything. Anything in particular?
I think most people aren't going to understand that because most people don't find themselves in the position, the power position, of a Canelo Alvarez.
It's reality.
You don't have to like it, and they don't. Though with Canelo Alvarez still holding 3 of the 4 major titles in the super middleweight division, still being a reigning champion who hasn't retired, the boxing world, the boxing community at large, is waiting for an answer. Who is he going to fight next? It's not looking like it's going to be David. Is it going to be Terrence?
Well, those rumors are out there.
A growing number of individuals siding with Terrence Crawford as being the next man to beat Canelo Alvarez. I see that movement.
And if he doesn't?
No, they'll just pour that energy into somebody else. They'll just hype up somebody else because that's where Canelo Alvarez is in his career, where Floyd Mayweather was years ago. I remember right after the Pacquiao fight, what was the biggest fight at the time and the highest grossing fight in the history of boxing. He beats that guy, makes it look easy,
So they can start hounding him with the name of Keith Thurman.
accusing him of avoiding Keith Thurman.
And so the point emerges.
Canelo Alvarez has reached a point to where people aren't going to be happy with him no matter what he does. If he fights Terrence Crawford and beats him, they're still going to be mad that he didn't fight David Benavidez.
And if he would have fought David Benavidez and beat him, you know what they'd start saying? He needs to fight David Morrell, who's got even less fights and less experience than David Benavidez.
The point is, it's never going to stop. Until Canelo Alvarez hangs the gloves up, there's always going to be a group of people he can't do nothing right for them. A part of me wants him to. Part of me wants him to just retire. You've done enough. Your ticket is punched.
He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's a shoo-in.
It's nauseating. Periodically revisiting this conversation and quotes like these from David Benavidez, who's still stuck on a Canelo fight, even though he's up there at light heavyweight.
All the stuff you claimed you wanted at 168, the opportunity to fight the best and fight for undisputed, you have that opportunity now at light heavyweight to where Canelo shouldn't even be a conversation.
But it still is, cause, underneath it all, that's not really what he wants. If he had to choose between fighting the winner of Better B versus Bivol or fighting Canelo, who do you think he would choose?
What?
While sounding like a broken record, still harping about Canelo Alvarez, well, if that ship has sailed, then let it sail.
Move on.
And he says he has, that's why he's fighting David Morrell, while still talking about Canelo.
So you know.
It's just more of the same, anywhere in between 168 and 175. Over to David's fight with David Morrell. David Benavidez's strength and conditioning coach, Memo Heredia, said Act 1, he being David Morrell, has a history of running away from PED random testing. Act 2, his team gets upset when asked for random drug testing prior to this fight. Act 3, mysteriously after testing starts, it's left 15 days without testing. What is VADA doing? To which Victor Conti responded, it seems that Memo Heredia needs to be called out in regards to his comments about David Benavidez and David Morrell not being drug tested frequently enough. It seems to have been misinformation spewed by Memo. I was informed by the Morrell Jr. side that he has been tested 4 times so far. I was also informed by TGB Promotions that the highest end and most expensive testing was contracted for this fight. I appreciate promoter Tom Brown providing this much needed clarification. Either Memo does not know the facts, or maybe he is posting misinformation on purpose for some unknown reason. Both the Morrell Jr. side and Tom Brown deserve props for providing the facts and exposing Memo's inaccurate statements. Angel Heredia responded by saying, VADA determines the number of blood and urine testing during a contract, and 15 days with no testing is unacceptable, here or on Mars. Stop defending your terrible asset and be neutral, as you should be, to which Victor responded, I'm completely neutral, with no bias, and have nothing to do with the VADA testing of David Benavidez and David Morrell. However, I was informed from the Morrell Jr. side that he's been tested 4 times so far. I assume that Benavidez has been tested an equal number of times. Angel responded by saying 2 weeks without testing? Please. I know you're trying to protect VADA at every cost, but why sell a testing package that isn't enough? Waste of money. So no, I stand on everything I wrote about VADA testings and competent testing services. Anyway, go to your family and Happy New Year. To which Victor responded, maybe Memo can tell boxing, a better organization that does random testing for elite boxers. To which Angel replied, unfortunately, none. Ladies and gentlemen, two things can be true at the same time. When Victor says that David Morrell has been tested 4 times so far, that might be legit. But it might also be legit that he ain't been tested in the last 15 days.
Maybe the 4 tests that they've done so far were more than 15 days ago. Maybe.
And that doesn't mean that they're done. They might do another test right before the fight and another one afterwards.
Remember, it's all the way out there in February.
They still have all of January to keep testing these guys. At the same time, when Angel says that Victor Conti is protecting VADA's reputation, it seems to me that's exactly what he's doing, because he's always getting involved in stuff that doesn't involve him.
Who asked you?
He's always speaking on VADA's behalf, whether it's in regards to Conor Benn and his situation, or David Morrell and his.
With David Benavidez.
Casting aside all of the pleasantries, I think that David Benavidez hired Angel to give him some good pads. Angel Heredia has the same track record, the same sketchy past as Victor, and if you decided to bring Memo back for this fight, it's not for no reason. So I think David Benavidez is on pads, but it's not one way. David Morrell might be on them too.
Then why is Memo complaining?
They're growing apprehensive as the fight date approaches. They're worried about what he's on and how he'll do. You're asking yourself, well, if he's on pads and you are too...
Doesn't that make things even Stevens?
Not if you're trying to cripple the other guy. Not if you contracted VADA testing for this fight so that he wouldn't be able to use whatever he's on. You figure, I've got Memo in my corner and he knows how to beat the test, but maybe David's guys don't. So we're gonna hire VADA. So he don't use his gear, so he don't use whatever he's on, and if he does, he gets caught.
They're nervous.
Entertain this scenario. You hired Memo for a competitive edge, so why the hell is he always complaining about the frequency of tests?
It's very obvious.
The very worst, what you have here is 2 guys that are on the sauce, on the gear, that are about to fight each other. But only one side is complaining.
David's side.
With a little over a month left before the fight date, plenty of time for David Morrell to get tested again, and after the fight. So what's the problem?
They're nervous.
It all lends itself to the fight's intrigue because David Morrell versus David Benavidez is a good fight. I don't know if it's $80 good.
I don't know how many of you guys are gonna buy it.
But it has sparked my curiosity. I do want to see how this one plays out. I do want to see who's gonna win. Your juice versus my juice. Your gear versus my gear.